We've had 50 days of Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government. Let's see how he's got on. We had the riots in Leeds. Which he stayed largely silent about. We had the Manchester Airport incident, where the Home Secretary appeared to take the side of the two lads who allegedly beat the living daylights out of police, breaking a female officer's nose. Then we had the Southport incident and the riots that followed. Keir Starmer didn't want to mention immigration, so he called people far right.
This was a meeting to pull together our response, a response both to the immediate challenge, which is clearly driven by far-right hatred.
Now, obviously some people were far-right, but by no means everybody. Then he stands accused of leaning on judges to give out long sentences. He then doubled down and called everyone a racist.
The disorder is intolerable. It is incapable of justification. It's clearly racist.
He said he'd have to let people out of prison early to free up space. Those include people like Lawson Natty, a killer, but then launched Operation Early Dawn, so anyone involved in protests or dodgy social media posts could be remanded in custody. This led to some people calling him two-tier Keir. And now magistrates are told not to send people to prison because of overcrowding. When he was elected, he had promised to...
I think that we can smash the vile gangs that are running this trade, that are making a fortune putting people into boats and breaching our border security. I'm not prepared to put up with that, and that's why I think the serious answer is to smash the gangs.
So, this guy, Neil Basu, was reportedly his number one choice to be the new head of Border Command. He turned that job down, apparently, and we still don't have anyone in charge of it. He scrapped Rwanda.
The Rwanda scheme was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent, and I'm not prepared to continue with gimmicks that don't act as a deterrent.
And now we've had thousands of people cross the channel, including 700 in one day. All of them will now be allowed to claim asylum in Britain. The backlog currently stands at around 120,000. Starmer and Reeves told us that the Tories left them in an economic mess.
The decisions I made on winter fuel payment yesterday are not decisions I wanted to make. They were not decisions that I expected to make. But when confronted with a £22 billion black hole, I had to act.
Well, they then gave the unions a massive pay rise, didn't he, with no strings attached to improve the quality of services. The junior doctors and the train drivers have both said that they'll strike again anyway. He's under pressure to do away with anti-strike laws to make it easier for everyone to go on strike. And now it's emerged that in July alone, they borrowed £3.1 billion to pay the public sector. This led to allegations of corruption, as it emerged that Labour cabinet ministers accepted hundreds of thousands of pounds from the unions before signing off on their pay rises. Starmer scrapped winter fuel payments for pensioners, so now some old people will have to choose between heating and eating this winter, despite hammering the Tories for even thinking about doing it. He put Ed Miliband in charge of our energy sector and promised you that your bills won't go up.
That's why the Labour Party has a fully costed plan to freeze energy bills this winter.
Now your bills are going up by an average of 10%. He appointed David Lammy as Foreign Secretary at a time of massive crisis in the Middle East, a man who said that we'd arrest the Israeli Prime Minister if he ever set foot in Britain. Lammy was then snubbed by the Israeli Prime Minister when he went to visit. Labour are embroiled in a cronyism row, as Labour donors and supporters are being appointed to the supposedly impartial civil service. He said that he respected the result of Brexit. Now we hear that there might be a negotiation on free movement for under 30s. It also looks like we're about to get loads more 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. His popularity ratings have plummeted, and now 52% of people think Britain is moving in the wrong direction under Sir Keir. Oh, and a record 9,500 millionaires are expected to leave the UK this year alone because of Starmer's expected tax hikes, which means that we will all end up paying more. I don't know about you, OK, but I can hardly wait for the next 50 days of hard labour. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Former BBC and ITV political chief John Sargent. We've got entrepreneur and businesswoman Joanna Jarju, and, of course, as well, political commentator Alex Armstrong. Well, when you look at it like that, John, I don't know, how would you evaluate his 50 days
Difficult.
Gone
difficult.
well?
Everyone knew it was going to be difficult. That's why the Tories did so badly in the election. We've got serious problems, particularly about how much public finance there is available. Nothing to do with what little growth there might be or not, but just simply how much we've borrowed. It's a very big figure. It's bigger than anyone imagined a few years ago that we'd reach. That's all got to be paid for. Everybody knows, gosh, you need to look at one aspect of the public sector, whether it's the NHS, whether it's prisons, whether it's defence or anything else, that we need more money. So the idea that we sort of sit here and say it's all Labour's fault for the last 5 weeks for what they've done is absurd. Of course, it's much deeper than that.
So, I mean, some of the things that they have actually been in control of, you know, the Leeds riots, the Manchester Airport incident, all of the issues that followed, you know, after the Southport incident as well, some of the decisions that they've made. I mean, Keir Starmer, a modern-day disaster story?
Yeah, well, I was just dumbfounded listening to your monologue there, Patrick, really, really was. It just feels like a government that's totally unqualified. They seem ignorant to the issues that are actually... they're solving all of these so-called issues with hardcore policing, so they're actually treating the symptom, not the problem, and they just seem to be completely in total chaos when it comes to anything critical to this country. He completely ignores the message about immigration. That although the electorate have literally voted for 14 years to solve this problem, and we had a massive historical referendum to try and put this to bed once and for all, but he's still ignoring that. He's poured fuel on the fire during his press conferences, calling people racist and far right, which also wasn't helping the problem. And he's weaponised the justice system against people creating memes on the internet, and now he's releasing hardcore criminals to let those people go into prison. It is bonkers what's happening.
Joanna, I mean, you know, I find it quite impressive, actually, that he's managed to do so badly without an opposition.
I think it's just completely been blown out of proportion. I mean, Alex, you even saying that he's ignored immigration. He has a plan for immigration.
What is it?
And he started working on it. So he's talked about, yes, I know he hasn't been able to select a person that will head up about, you know, tackling the criminal gangs, but also Yvette Cooper has been talking about opening more detention centres. One of the key problems with the immigration problem that we had was not just that loads of people were coming via boats. It was also about how we were housing these people and how we were processing them. So they also want to staff more of the Home Office so that we can process people and get it done. But there's other stuff as well that they've, you know, introduced and want to do. For example, you know, lifting the ban on offshore wind that was there before, more housing targets, all of the things that we want, but it's also been 50 days. And can I just say that when we compare it to the, 46 days or 49 days of Liz Truss?
49, yeah.
A lot of the things that they're actually now trying to reverse is because of that. We were talking about pensions before. We had the Bank of England trying to protect people's pension funds before.
Well, there are some serious things that have happened in this 50 days, John, that I do suspect if the Tories had been in power, though, would have got a lot more traction. So, the appointment of Labour donors and Labour members, etc., to the civil service and stuff like that. Now, that really, under the Tories, would have made massive headlines, wouldn't it? That's cronyism.
Well, they did. But of course, they had lots of people that they wanted who were already in government. They've been in power for 14 years. I mean, it's all very well to sort of suddenly say, why can't you solve everything? You had 50 days messing it all up. Wait a moment. These are deep-seated problems.
Yeah,
They're really difficult to handle. Nobody, in fact, when it comes to immigration, 120,000 people queuing up to have their asylum claims considered. I mean, the list is such a long one. You go through it all the time and then say, and it's Labour's fault.
But
I go through
to Patrick's defence, John. To Patrick's defence, there is a lot of things they could have done better. And I think, I just said it. Like, well, yes, but the way he handled the riots was poor. Like, going on those press conferences and fueling. Hang on, let me speak. Like, pouring fuel on an already intense situation is a terrible way to lead.
Calling a spade a spade.
But no, but that's not.
Oh, if you're trying to
listen, Joanna. If I asked you to define what the far right is, nobody can come up with a definition of it. So what I'm saying is
a spade. If you're trying to burn a mosque, I'm sorry.
Listen, it's just a silly word thrown around that no one knows any meaning for it, and it riles. No, not racist. I'm talking about the far right comment, right? And this is silly stuff, right? The leader of this country needs to be more delicate when he's addressing a divided nation.
Let me ask you a question, actually, Alex. If you wouldn't call what those rioters were doing far right, you're to the right of the political spectrum. So would you say that you're in the same? They're in the same camp
I
as
call
you,
them
then?
rioters. Is exactly what they are. If you want to call a spade a spade, they are rioters. They don't need to be given a political denomination.
No, what political motive? What side of the political spectrum were they?
Well, I don't think they were on one. I think they're in this independent bit at the bottom. The same way that people who are rioting for Black Lives Matter and pulling statues. No, hang on, John. No, hang on. But hang on, because when you look at the horseshoe of politics, the far right and the far left, the right at the bottom, they're pretty much together. When we had the Black Lives Matter riots and they were pulling down statues and causing criminal damage, they were heralded as heroes by this government. Now people are going around burning things, which I completely disagree with, and I can condemn it massively. We've got to stop labelling people. It just fuels the fire. That's what it is. It's just fueling fire of things that should be calmed down.
Let's deal with where Keir Starmer is as it currently stands, right? So 52% of people say that they don't think the country's moving in the right direction under him.
Right,
his net approval rating went from +7 to 0, I think. I'm right in saying and like I said before as well, Parliament hasn't been recalled, right? So we've not actually got any proper serious opposition. The Tories haven't even got a leader, for goodness sake. Do you think this bodes quite badly for his next 50 days, John?
Well, no, I think the point is people will have to settle down to the point that we are in dire difficulties over a whole series of issues. The government have got to try and cope with some of them. Some of them are exceptionally difficult to cope with, like immigration, like stopping the boats. We all know this. We all know it's extremely difficult to command energy prices when you can't command them. People all know this. They know it's extremely difficult to get the right mix between wind power, climate change, all these various things. Nobody thinks it's easy. Nobody thinks, oh, well,
I'll tell you one of the
But
best things he did was scrap that awful Rwanda plan. And one of the best things that Rachel Reeves has done as well is to ask for an audit of all of Whitehall's finances as well. Because let's not forget the PPE contract, all the shady things that happened over the pandemic. Yes, we're in a bad position financially because of that, but we're also in a bad position because of Tory sleaze. Talk about this cronyism, but the other sleaze cost us money.
But with that, and this will have to be the final point, but on that, we scrapped the Rwanda plan. Now, plenty of people thought that wouldn't work, OK, but they also did not have to ignore the Illegal Migration Act, which is where we are now, which means that anyone, which is currently 120,000 people on a backlog, can apply for asylum.
Yeah, it's just open doors now, isn't it? And we saw all those people queuing up in Calais and other parts of France, waiting to come to the UK once Keir Starmer won the election. And then we got flooded with them, as we've seen over the last few weeks. Unfortunately, it's the case. And instead of addressing the issue, he's pretending it hasn't happened. We've had nothing from the Home Secretary about this. What Labour have managed to achieve in 50 days is what the chaos of 14 years of Tories managed to do. And that's the problem. It's the culmination of the Uniparty handing it is. It's 50 days of chaos under Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, and it's only going to get worse.
All right, well, another lively start to the hour. Brilliant stuff. Right, coming up.